Greetings, everyone. This is Umby, and week 2 of the VGC Draft League is complete, at least for me, where I faced off against my friend Sanaito. Now, truth be told, for this one, I meant to do kind of a live reaction for this one, but I was a little bit tired, so I just went straight into the match. But of course, we're just going to go ahead and do our usual breakdown and review of the replays themselves. So they've got kind of a scary squad, in my opinion, where they're running the Walking Wake Torkoal Lilligant, the Sun Core, and coincidentally enough, also their Fire Water Grass Core. Just on its own, it makes it very difficult for me to defend against, particularly because with the Walking Wake, it's not just a water type, it's a dragon type, making it pretty hard for me to hit it effectively outside of something like my Gardevoir or a Terra Fairy, Terra Dragon on something on my side. So I have to be a little bit careful of that. But not only that, Sanaito is well versed on using Torkoal Lilligant, activating that chlorophyll ability, using After You to get the Torkoal ahead, or just disabling something with Sleep Powder. Very usual stuff for Sun teams. So I have to kind of utilize my own Fire Water Grass Core, that Rillaboom, Heatran, and Gyarados to try and counteract that. So we're going to be focused on making it very bulky to survive those hits, and then kind of disabling it through the use of things like the Snarl, through the use of a Thunder Wave somewhere perhaps. We got all sorts of tools to kind of like slow down this team, especially because they're so special attack invested on their side. I can also kind of lean into using things like Snarl or Eerie Impulse to slow them down too. I do have to be a little bit careful of things like Glimmora, Hariyama, and Electros. The Glimmora, because the Heatran is such a pivotal part of my team, where I can use the Flash Fire ability to stop up Torkoal, as well as Terra Grass. Glimmora is something that could potentially punish me for using Terra Grass on that Pokemon in particular. It also has access to Earth Power if I don't go Terra Grass, so it's a little bit scary there. Hariyama in general, adding some much needed bulk on Sanaito's side, adding a Fake Out user, and also threatening Heatran with the use of Close Combat. Also kind of staves off my Iron Thorns, which I know I've talked about as being a decent value pick, and while still being threatening in a draft league setting. That's going to deter me from using it a little bit. Same thing goes for the Electros, with 3 electric types on my team, and the Levitate ability to avoid the Earth Power from either Sandy Shocks or Heatran. It makes it tough to actually target, despite it not being all that beefy or even all that fast. So if it gets room to come in, it can actually do a fair bit of damage to my team with that close combat of its own. Wild Charge also naturally threatens my Gyarados and my Vaporeon if I decide to use that. It also gets Fire Punch to get boosted by the sun, and also target down the Rillaboom. So with all that in mind, this is the way I decided to approach the matchup. Of course, using the Assault Vest Rillaboom, that's nothing new here, but with Terra Water and Snarl, I'm aiming to soak up the most expected moves coming into my team, while also just spamming that Snarl, slowing down their special attack, and then getting it something like the Heatran or the Gyarados into position to clean up from there after we've kind of chipped away. With the Heatran, like I mentioned, I get punished by something like Glimmora if I go immediately into the Terra Grass. Terra Fairy doesn't really help that, but I still get to avoid the Earth Power at the same time. With the safety goggles, I don't have to worry about the Sleep Powder from the Lilligant. I'm mainly trying to defend against the close combats here from perhaps the Hariyama, so we're aiming for that. The substitute's going to help me if they decide to go for a Trick Room with the Yixi. Gyarados, kind of mimicking the standard Dragonite that we see. I've just made it really bulky, opted for Terra Blast Flying, going with 3 moves here and Protect, and a Lumberry, just relying on its natural base attack stat to do the heavy lifting for its damage, not leaning into Moxie or Dragon Dance. Figured that because Hariyama's coming along, Intimidate would still be useful despite there being so many special attack oriented Pokemon on their team. With the Gardevoir, that's another way that we're trying to kind of stifle out the special offense from their side. Combined with the Snarl, perhaps, we get to boost the Calm Mind up, and if we get below half health, of course the Citrus Berry heals back up, makes it both a defensive and offensive threat that they have to deal with. And of course, since I'm using Earthquake on Gyarados, got the telepathy so I don't do any damage to it. That's also a reason you notice that overgrows on Rillaboom. That is intentional. Try not to use the Grassy Surge so as the Earthquake can retain its maximum damage. And then, of course, Electrode, Hisui, and Persian Alola. Those are just the two fastest Pokemon that I have available, and are just going to be general disruptors. Kind of check out the scene, and then sacrifice themselves so I can get an easy switch into something like the Gyarados. With the Electrode, it's fast enough with the Choice Scarf that it actually outruns the Lilligant even after the Chlorophyll is activated. So we're relying on that to get down perhaps a Thunder Wave, kind of cause that disruption I was talking about. We're not necessarily looking for the speed drop, but just perhaps a full paralysis turn. The speed drop may help later on versus something like a Glamora if my Gyarados or Rillaboom aren't fast enough. They do have some speed investment into them in case it runs fully bulky with no speed investment, but Thunder Wave will help further that cause just in case it is a little bit on the speedier side. I had some other plans like the electric terrain, kind of honing in on that Lilligant once again. That would help stop the Sleep Powder from being effective without having to use anything like a Terra, or relying so much on a Lumberry since I'm putting it on the Gyarados instead. But that was a little bit too much, so I decided to keep it simple, going with the Chloroblast, Thunderbolt, and Terrablast Fire potentially, just to have some special offense across the board. It's not going to be the heaviest outside of that Chloroblast, but it'll be something. And then last but not least, the Persian Alola, just combining with the Rillaboom. Got two Snarlers there, but also because I'm expecting potentially a taunt from the, a Trick Room from the Uxie, I'm trying to taunt that, stop it from being set up. And I didn't really know what I wanted for the fourth move, so I decided on Fake Tears to help support the Gardevoir and the Heatran with their damage. All right, all that said though, let's get into the actual replays. All right, here in game one, we see that all the expected party members have arrived here. The Walking Wake, Torkoal, Lilligant, Uxie, Hariyama, and Glamora. And I am glad to see that no Electros was there, so everything that we had prepped against, we can very likely handle. So they're gonna go ahead and open up and lead with Torkoal, Lilligant, activate that Sun and the Chlorophyll ability. Meanwhile, I've gone for Persian and Rillaboom. Figured that if they are going to lean into Trick Room, perhaps I can go ahead and stop that at the start with a Fake Out and a Taunt. Persian is going to live from that Pollen Puff, always meant to live because of that Focus Sash, so I get to taunt the Lilligant, but it doesn't matter because the U-turn picks up a crit on it anyway, which I'm very happy about. So that makes the matchup a lot easier here at the start. I get to pivot into the Gyarados, figure that Walking Wake is in the back. I have a Heatran in the back, so this is just easier for me to pivot it into. Walking Wake's going to immediately Terra Water here. I'm going to go for the Snarl. I am faster than the Walking Wake, since they opted for the special attack Photosynthesis, which helps me out a little bit too. They go for the Hydro Steam into the Gyarados. I'm expecting a little bit more damage, but only got 30%. I go for an Earthquake. I find the Shuka Berry, which is very important information for the next match, but the resistance to the Eruption and the lower HP pool, I can take the Eruption pretty well as well. I bring back in the Rillaboom. I see an opportunity to go for Terra Water, so I can resist the Torkoal and start spamming some Snarls here. With that Lilligant gone, I don't have to worry about a grass move hitting it, so I'm pretty much free and clear to do that. They go for an Overheat here, further reducing their special attack. Was hoping to go ahead and get Rillaboom off the board, but with AV and Terra Water, it's going to be tough for them to tear through. No Dragon attack from the Walking Wake, instead going to resort to Hydro Steam. Does a decent chunk, but still not close enough to get a KO from there. Meanwhile, with the Terra Water, I get to clear from the with the Drum Beating for my own Rillaboom. Go for another Earthquake here, get some more damage down onto the Torkoal. Another Earthquake going into the next turn to finish off the Torkoal, and we find the Focus Sash on the Glamora, and also we know that both of my Pokemon are faster than the Glamora, so it looks like they went for full bulk despite that Focus Sash there, and that's one of the things that we had hoped and planned for with that speed investment. So that's going to lead us into game number 2, where I decide, I don't need to really change up too much of anything. I've already got one game in the bag. I can kind of go with the same plan and adjust as needed here. They feel the same way. They're going to go and bring out the Torkoal and Lilligant one more time. This time they're going to go for Terra Water, just so I Actually, not sure what the plan was there. Just so they can avoid that damage from the U-turn. I'm not sure if they realized it was a crit last time. I got a little bit lucky. But they just want to avoid getting Oko there. I go for the fake out into the Torkoal this time. We're expecting that it had the covert cloak, so we're not trying to fake it out and waste a turn. I'm content to just fake out, snarl, continuing to reduce the team's damage. They're going to go for the Pollen Puff to clear out the Persian, but I have an opportunity to go for drum beating here and get off the field one more time. So I'm in a similar situation to last time. And I also get a free switch for the deal as well. Yuxi did make this appearance along with the Haruyama, so I have to be a little bit careful about how I play these next turns. I go for the Terra Flying, just in case they don't fake out that slot. They do, but that might have net me a one-hit KO versus the Haruyama, especially now that their Terra is gone. I go for the U-turn into the Yuxi so I can get some chip damage down into it, and pivot over into the Heatran. I'm going to try and stall these Trick Room turns just a little bit here. Haruyama is an active threat, but I'm expecting they went for the thick fat ability rather than anything like a burn orb and guts. So we can also expect that we can take their attacks relatively well, especially with the Rillaboom's physical bulk. But they go for the Ice Punch into the Gyarados, which is not enough for a KO, and I get an opportunity to go for Terra Flying and clear off the field like I wanted to. Now it's down to their Torkoal and Yuxi. I've pivoted the Rillaboom in, so I get to use a fake out under this Trick Room. And of course the Heatran, not going to be taking too much damage from the Yuxi. It's more of a defensive utility than offer some threats, so I'm not too worried about it. I need to protect here, try and stall out that Trick Room turn again. Torkoal with the Eruption. Surprisingly, Rillaboom takes that pretty well, but especially with the sun being down, they're unable to reset it. And a reduced health pool for the Torkoal. I can survive that just as well, was just above 50%, which was impressive. A little bit more damage into the Rillaboom, but we're still not too worried now. Torkoal goes for the Earth Power into the Heatran, not enough for a KO. We get rid of that Sugar Berry, but with a critical hit, it brings it down pretty low, which is going to be pretty relevant, I believe. I get another U-turn with the Rillaboom, so I can move back into the Gyarados. Start working on these, the Terra Flying into the Torkoal, perhaps to finish it off, or even get some additional damage down into the Yuxi here. I pivot up the Heatran just in case. I go for the additional damage into the Yuxi, expecting something kind of like this play, where they want to stall out a turn for Yuxi to do something. In this case, it's Trick Room. I'm going to go for the Protect on the Torkoal. That gives me free reign to bring in the Rillaboom, who is not really under threat from the Torkoal anymore, thanks to that rain, thanks to its severely reduced special attack stat, and also the Yuxi itself. Again, not going to be hitting all that hard with its own special attacks, with its just lower offensive stat. So pretty much I feel like I have the game wrapped up. Everybody's at low health. I can continue spamming stuff like Snarl. I can, of course, get rid of the Torkoal with the Terra Blast here. Go for the U-turn finally to clear out the Yuxi. Is just in range. All right, and that ends the run for week number 2. Again, I think this was still like a very scary squad to try and run into. With that Suncore there, if I don't handle it just the right way, they can run away with the game. And of course, if I hyper focus on their Sun pieces, things like Glamora and Haruyama with the correct position can actually punish me for the kind of things that you would typically defend against that with. But that said, GG, well played. Good luck in week number 3. I'll be looking for the same as we continue on with this league. But all that said, if you did like this video, of course, leave a like and a comment. I'll appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.